All right, looks like we're live. How's it going, Rick?
Hey, Erik.
Thanks for coming on and talking to us here. So the reason I wanted to talk to you, because I know you do a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. You're a developer, you're a programmer, you're on the Entreprogrammers website. You also have a blog and you do some freelancing. So can you just tell me a little bit about what you're up to and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, it's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of things that I'm working on and lots of exciting stuff. And I looked at your YouTube channel because you sent me the link and I was like, oh, I've done this interviews with all these different people like John, Dylan, like all these different channels. I'm like, okay, cool. I can definitely do an interview with you, no problem. And it seems like we're kind of interested in the same niche, which is JavaScript. And actually made a video, I think back in September when I was like, 10 things you need to know about Angular 2. Or actually, it was something along those lines. I don't remember the exact title for it. But my whole entire idea for that entire video was like, hey, it's a great point to be right now in the JavaScript world if you want to do something. Because literally the tools are at that point where like no one has built anything. So if you want to do something, like right now is the time to jump in. So
yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty much a little bit of background as far as who I am and what I do and all the things that I focus on. So pretty much I'm based here in Salt Lake City, Utah. Pretty much all my work that I do now is for clients that I find here in Salt Lake. I've tried multiple things, but the ones that usually stick around with me are the ones that actually deal with locally. So going to meetings, talking to people, all that fun stuff that happens here in Salt Lake City for most of my client work. Yeah, so that's just pretty much my client work. That's what I do usually from, around 9 a.m. till 2 to 3 p.m. So then after that, it's pretty much free time, so I can work on other stuff from like 3 to 5, which is things like my blog, which you've seen, things like my YouTube channel, things like the Entreprogrammers, the podcast, different things like that on that nature.
So what made you want to get into entrepreneurship? I noticed, some people would call a blog not like a business, but I think you definitely approach it different than a lot of other people. A lot of programmers, they might try a blog, they might put up a few posts and then quit, but you've gone on, you put up a bunch of blog posts, you've created your own programs. What made you interested in all that?
So number one, marketing. So if you want to like, most people, people want a bigger salary, people want clients, people want work, people want all these things, but they're not willing to put in the work and do all those extra things that are actually required outside of you. And those extra things, those extracurricular activities, those are the ones that are actually going to pay you off. No, it's not going to be, just going to work and doing your 9 to 5 stuff.
So what is the program that you have put on recently is the based on the mean stack. So what is the mean stack for anybody that doesn't know, and what does the course cover?
Okay, so you're touching on a lot of stuff. So I have a training program that I went and put together. It's about 14 hours long, and it covers pretty much how to become a full stack developer. And it covers a lot of different topics. It's pretty much, I broke down like everything that I do for my day-to-day work in 14 hours. So if you can literally pick up this training and just run with it in different work. And I pretty much just boiled down all my information into that one single course, which is 14 hours long. And it's a upper division course. There's a lot of prerequisites. Like one of the prerequisites for it is you need to have at least programmed with 2 programming languages. You have at least been doing this for a year. Like I have a lot of prerequisites that you need to have in order for you to even get in there. And if you don't meet those prerequisites, I actually refund you your money and pretty much reject you from the program. And the reason why I do that is because I really want those people that are going to be going through the program to actually get results. And I really can't give somebody results if they've never done any sort of program before. So that's kind of like the synopsis for the course itself. But throughout the course, we actually we build up the entire full stack using the mean stack. And we go all the way through the end of the course. And at the end of the course, I'm like, okay, you made it all the way to the end of the course. This is great. We've done all these different things. But we're going to go to the next level here, and we're going to create a generator tool. And this tool is going to generate all this code that we went ahead and created already, and it's going to scaffold out your project. So next time you go and actually do a project, you can just literally run from the command line, and it'll scaffold out your entire project based on everything we did in the course. And I asked the students, this sounds good, let's go ahead and do it. And this is like the first version of the tool that I went and created. And it's pretty much a scaffolding tool that pretty much lets you scaffold out the mean stack, but with like new modern tool chains, so like Webpack, ES6, modules, all this fun stuff. And I went ahead and put that together, and it goes ahead and generates all this code, and then all the code is based on the one we did through the course, which we built the entire full stack from the beginning. So there's a couple of interesting things that happen because of that. One of them is that zero core. So like, I don't know if you've seen most frameworks, they have a core. Like, don't touch the core. The core is for the developers. Don't muck with the modules. Like the core, you don't touch that. Well, this thing that I built has zero core. You can touch every single file. So I think that's a really cool, interesting thing. But I'm not sure that answered the question.
No, that's good. So yeah, it sounds like it goes over quite a bit over the mean stack. Of course, the mean is that's Angular, MongoDB, Express, and Node, right? Yep. So definitely a lot of Angular developers out there, and you're focusing on Angular 1 too. It sounds like, right?
Angular 2.
Oh wow, Angular 2. It's even better. I know every time I talk to an Angular developer, it's a little bit of a debate. Some Angular developers are like, oh, well, Angular 2 is not ready yet, and then some people are like, well, Angular 1 just works fine. So that's great. You guys are doing updated, awesome Angular 2 stuff on there.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty cool because like it's ES6 on the server plus ES6 on the client. So it's like just kind of one big ES6 thing. So it's like you don't have to really kind of jump back between ES5 and the different ways you used to do things. It's just like one cohesive thing. So you can just focus on the thing you want to build. Now,
you're mentioning a little bit about a scaffolding that you use. Is that part of the framework that you created?
Yeah, so that's essentially the tool. Right now it's like version 1. I can't really call it a framework. It is more like a scaffolding tool. But what is a framework? It's the folders placed in a specific order. The specific things like in a pattern, like design patterns actually implemented for you. Like that's essentially what it does. So it does a couple things. It does like the observer pattern, it does the MVC pattern. So you can think like Laravel plus Ruby plus automation. It's still in its early ages, so it's not like it's only like kind of me working on this, so it's not like full blown, ready to go type of deal.
That's pretty cool though. But it is on GitHub. It's open source. Anybody can contribute to it, and you've been putting a lot of time into it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you can go to meanstack.net and check it out.
Nice. Yeah, definitely creating your own tooling to put in your course makes things a little bit easier. So is that kind of your passion too? Is open source at all, or is this just kind of another thing that you've been working with?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting as far as, because it kind of comes back to like the topic you brought a little bit up, which is your entrepreneurial side, right? It's like, if you want to create a tool, if you want to create anything that is meaningful, guess what? It's going to cost you money, right? And a lot of people don't like to talk about money. Money is a touchy subject, right? Well, how much are you talking about here? But it's an important idea here, because you need to be aware of money so you can understand the license that you're going to license your software under, right? Because if you start thinking about it, like, well, how does MySQL make money? Do you know?
MySQL. So do they have a division that's open source, but then they have a for-profit company that sells training and support for it, I'm assuming?
You broke up for me.
Oh, I was gonna say there might be two parts to they might have an open source part where they're giving away SQL for free, but then they have a for-profit company on one side that sells training and support, I'm assuming, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, it's based on consulting. So they do like $1,500 an hour for consulting services. So if you're like someone very specific and you want to get some query relatively fast, you would hire the MySQL guys. They'll go ahead and do it for you. Again, I don't know if they actually still do it this way, but this is like the original model, back when in the early stages.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so definitely you can make money in open source. I know Red Hat has something similar. They give away, they have some parts of their company that gives away, of course, their source code and product, but then there's another part of the company that does support, so they make money off that, and then they have Fedora too. So that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know exactly how MySQL worked, but yeah, so that's kind of the approach that you're taking. Then you're saying is that if you have these tools, then you're going to be able eventually to support them. You might be able to do consulting or get referrals from them. So that's an interesting model. Is that how you kind of approach freelancing? How did you get into freelancing per se?
Okay, that brings up a really good question. I mean, it's a really long story. I'm not sure how much I'll touch on it here, but I've been doing it for about 3 years now. And it's a pretty long time because most people, they fail. And I have failed also. And it's kind of reflecting on your failure and figuring out what you did wrong and coming back and approaching it. So let me take you back. So I actually tried to freelance. Let me take you way back. I had a job at a software startup for education here in Salt Lake, and I was working there, and it was fun. I mean, I was getting paid like around $15 an hour. It was my first job, so it wasn't like anything magical or anything, super like I wasn't super awesome or whatever. But I felt like I was worth a little bit more than what I was getting paid, and I was working really long hours, and I just feel like it was just sucking the life out of me. I don't know if anybody's been in a startup, they kind of know that feeling, but I felt like I was worth more. I felt like I could do more. I feel like there was definitely more opportunities that are out there for me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a break, and then I'm gonna go find my own client work and do whatever I want to do. And I did. I mean, I quit my job, and there was no client work lined up, nothing lined up. I just pretty much just quit, and I got to work, and I started looking for clients. I started going through the meetup cycle. I started getting on calls, started meeting different people, trying to get my client pipeline full, and I failed. And I went through this for 5 months, right? Just like failure after failure, rejection after rejection, rejection. It got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I hate this. This is horrible. And I just kept at it, and it kept failing. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go back and get a job. And most people will say like, oh my God, you failed completely. You went and got back a job. Like, how could you even do that? Like, most people will tell you that. But it was like, whatever. Like, I'll get a job. And I went and got a job, and pretty cool job. Like, I was making a lot more than I was in my first job. So I learned something between there and then. So I was making a lot more money there. And while I was working that job, I got a lot more responsibility because I learned a lot in those 5 months that I kept failing. Like, I learned about business, I learned about marketing, I learned about different topics outside of, programming development. So I worked that job for 8 months, and during that time, I had a lot of time to actually reflect on the errors that I did make during those 5 months of failure. Then I came back. Then that's kind of where I figured it out. I'm like, okay, so I can actually do this. It just takes a little bit of persistence, and you gotta find out what you're actually doing. So that's kind of my whole entire journey.
So you went through the job, you were trying for you left your full-time job, you tried for 6 months, you said 5 months?
5 months.
5 months you were talking to people, you were hustling, going to meetups, just trying to put out proposals, I'm guessing. And then freelancing is very competitive. Is that kind of how it worked?
Yeah, I was finding it that I wasn't attracting the right people. So in the beginning, I was getting a lot of calls. I was talking to a lot of different people that were discussing their problems with me. And I'll be like, oh, this sounds great. It sounds like it could be of help. Like, Android apps, iOS apps, all kinds of different things, right? And it's like, yeah, I can definitely do this. It's going to cost you this much. And when you bring up the price, they'll be like, well, can you do it for like half? And it's kind of like, and I just kept encountering that where like people would ask me like, why do you think you're worth this much? And I would have to justify that with about like 2 years of experience. So still relatively new. It's like, well, what do you think you're worth so much, Rick? Like tell us, why should we pay this amount of money? And I couldn't really justify how much I was charging because I wasn't yet confident enough to be able to charge that much. So
yeah, I know I work a full-time job, and I tried freelancing in the past, and I usually come to the point where I get someone, like a friend refers me, or a friend of a friend refers me, or they might email me. And then, yeah, as soon as I bring up that amount about money, and maybe I'm not doing it right, and I haven't had much practice. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, that sounds good, and then no emails, or like you're just waiting for the confirmation that it's going to go on. And it never happens, and it can be frustrating. And like, well, why? Yeah, and I haven't had the point where someone said, why are you justifying? I've actually, the few freelancing jobs that I have put in bids on and talked to friends of friends on to put in bids on, I've actually underbid. I'm like, you know what? I don't think I could charge $100 an hour. I'll charge just $50 an hour, 40, that'll compete against a lot of people. And I think maybe that's even detrimental, because then, yeah, you're giving them a good deal, but then they're like, oh, well, maybe why is this guy charging so less? So I feel like, well, I'm not sure if I should charge more, or if I should try to a good deal, because I haven't done much freelancing. So you kind of play these mind games with yourself. I don't know. Have you ever had something like that happen?
Yeah, and that was essentially what you're saying right now. That was the first time around. That is essentially what happened to me. Like, I was talking to a lot of different people. I was trying to be of help to other people, and I just kept getting like, no. This won't work. That won't work. That is too expensive. Blah 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 blah. And I just could not land a single client, and it was just really frustrating, because here I was. I'm like, I got all these different services of all these value that I can add to your company, but no one was willing to acknowledge that.
So then after that, you went through that period, and you were thinking about getting a full-time job, you said.
Yeah, and I want to get a job. Like, so many people, like, they're like, oh, you failed, Rick. You got a job. Like, this is failure. Like, this is not, you did it wrong. And yeah, I did it wrong. So what?
But now are you still are you still at that job now then?
No, I left like 2 years ago.
Okay, then you left yeah, I'm sorry, just trying to make sure I get the story right. Yeah, you left 2 years ago, and then now you're the second time around. What was different? You said a little bit that you now know about different technologies and you got exposed to different things. Is that kind of what changed the second time around?
Yeah, I learned a lot about marketing and outreach, and getting comfortable getting no's. So before, like, the first time I went around, when I would get a rejection, it would take me like an entire week to recover, because I worked so hard to get that one rejection. So it would take me like one entire week of doing nothing, just to go back out again and get another no. So like that recovery time, I got it down to about 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. So but now you found a stable amount of clients, so you're not looking for any more client work, I'm guessing, at this point.
Yep. So right now I have about 4. It fluctuates between 4 to 6 clients, but right now there's 4.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely just getting over that rejection and anything. I mean, we were just talking about entrepreneurial. You have to be able to ask people things, and sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no. I asked you for this interview. You could have said no, and I would have been, been bummed. But you have to be able to take those rejections and just keep going. And I think that's one of the things in not just being a freelancer, but being an entrepreneur, or a lot of things in life. You just got to be able to get over those rejections, and not be able to not just stop there and give up at that point. That's definitely, something I've struggled with as I moved on with the stuff I'm doing, is just be able to take those rejections and keep going. Do you think now that's helping with your entrepreneurial journey too, with creating these courses, things like that?
So this is a good question for you. How'd you get past that? Like, how do you get past people telling you no all the time?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. I sometimes a little venting to some friends on what happened helps me, although some friends don't appreciate venting as much as others. And then just keep on doing it. Like, even though you're going to get a no, if you kind of expect in the back of your head, like, okay, well, I know if I'm going to call these 10 people, or I'm going to send these 10 emails out, I might only get 2 emails back, but that's okay. And just realizing, just taking each small win and being able to be okay with that, and understand that a lot of times these things are numbers games. You're going to have 100 people. You have a mailing list, for example, and you're trying to sell a product. You might send an email to 100 people, and maybe only 2 people buy, but that doesn't mean you got 98 no's. I would think that that's 2 yeses, which is good, especially if you're just starting out.
So what would you say your recovery time as far as like, you know, if you work something for like, let's say you work for a really hard interview and like, you know, you wanted this person that has, you know, pretty large following to actually interview you and they rejected you like right there. And like how long would you say to recover from that?
Yeah, I think right now it's much quicker. So like, you know, like 5-10 minutes, I'm like, well, that's fine. I've had a harder time in the past, like interviewing for jobs. I've had job interviews where I've flown all the way halfway across the United States. You know, I've had all day interviews where I've done coding and pair programming, and then I've come back and gotten emails that said, "Oh, sorry, you weren't a right fit for the team," and that's really hard. Like, and I've gotten, you know, that those don't happen too often. I'm pretty happy with my job right now, but when I was looking for a job and going through that process and getting those no's, that was a lot harder back then. So stuff online, like interviewing people or, you know, sending emails out or trying to sell a product or a book or something. I don't have a ton of products and books. I have one book. That doesn't bother me as much as like something like an interview. So I think I'm learning and getting better at it. Can you relate to some of that? I mean, you were just talking about.
Yeah, and that's for everybody listening at home. That's it. Like, if you want to be a freelancer, if you want to actually do this stuff like full time, guess what? It's like going to a job interview once a month. Like, it's that. Like, you know, you gotta really step it up and be okay with people like telling you that, you know, no, and be able to move on with that. And even after you invest all this time, because you will invest all this different time learning about a company, learning about an organization, learning about their problems, and then proposing an actual solution, and then them coming around telling you no, you know, that takes a while.
Yeah. I want to go back to your freelancing for a second, ask a few more questions on that, if you don't mind. So you said you have 4 different clients. Do you bill daily or weekly, or is it just dependent on the company? So if people are wanting to get into freelancing, what can they expect?
Sure. Yeah. So typically what I do, I usually charge at the end of a project. So I don't charge hourly, I charge by project base. And I'm pretty comfortable now as far as with the companies that I'm actually working with, be able to actually give a good enough estimates. And I also, in my contracts, I have a 10% clause. So it can be 10% higher or 10% lower of the original project scoped fee. So that's usually how I do it. I usually charge at the very end of the project. Once the project is actually delivered, that's when I usually collect the money. So one, you have to have enough money to be able to live 3, 4, 5, 6 months without getting paid. And then after you get paid, you know, after the 6 months that you send out invoice and you're about to get paid, expect another month to wait for that to be processed. So it's like you got to have a lot of money to be able to actually move around as far as kind of where you're at. This is why consultants charge so much. Like you got to kind of like see both sides. This is why you have to charge a, you know, certain amount of money in order for you to be actually be able to actually afford to be able to go 3-4 months without actually collecting any sort of paycheck.
So you sometimes can go months without collecting a paycheck, depending on if all your projects fall on a certain date. Then, so you must be able to take your money and be able to spread it out for a long period of time. I know that's one of the kind of a lot of people that are in the freelance space. That's one like negative, especially if you have kids or family. I'm not sure if you do, but it's difficult to like go long periods of time without money. And it's kind of these high highs and low lows if you don't have clients or
yeah. So it's really important to have a good schedule and a good pipeline of customers and figuring out their needs and anticipating a lot of things, how they're going to happen. So a lot of planning. You got to make sure that you're on top of different things as far as like billing and make sure everybody's on board on what you're actually doing, and you know, coordinating everything is correctly. And this kind of comes back, well, you know, how large do you want to be? For me right now, it's just me and a couple people on Upwork and a couple contacts that I have. So it's like, it's technically still small enough, but if I really wanted to, like, I could push it hard and be like, you know, another employee, and then like try to get a different office, and then, you know, try to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And at that point, you're looking at an agency. So that's like completely a different ball game. But it kind of depends. It kind of comes back to what you want to do and why you want to do it.
So you do the CSS, graphics, illustrations?
No, I outsource a lot of that stuff. So let me come back to kind of my quote unquote ideal client. So my ideal client is somebody that has over 50 employees. So usually those organizations have a designer, or they have, somebody in staff that does a lot of that work. And usually what I do, I specifically focus on the software. So software development, going through the software development lifecycle and implementing different features, so on.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know I've worked with small web development companies that have one or two guys that do everything, including the graphics and the front end and back end database stuff. And then I've worked at other places, or I haven't worked, well, some places I've helped out with and some I've worked at, where they'll have like a pipeline of people. They'll have someone that does only HTML. They'll have someone that only does JavaScript. And then they'll have a designer that puts everything together either in Photoshop or some other software to give to the person that does the HTML, and they'll give it to the JavaScript guy, and then they'll have a back end guy that puts it all together. And then they'll have like one or two freelancers that just kind of fill in at different areas at different times. So I guess, yeah, definitely different, depends on the work, the agency and how and the client and how they're working with you. Interesting. Very interesting. Do you use any like software as a freelancer to do like your invoicing or billing that you'd recommend?
Yeah, it's a really good question. As far as like the back end, I have QuickBooks, and for my invoicing, I generate my invoice via PayPal, but I don't take PayPal as a payment. All the payments that I get to process, they're usually processed via check. So I usually send an invoice. It takes about a month and a half to get that processed, and then I get a check into my mailbox. That's usually how the billing goes. Oh,
very cool. Very cool. And when you were looking, so there, you mentioned Upwork earlier, and I know there's, I haven't used it, but actually maybe I did once, but there's Upwork and there's Elance, and I think they changed their name, but there's a few of these freelancing sites where you can just bid on different jobs and you can give your pricing. And then there's even websites where you can, like Top Coder, I think they hire a certain amount of people. They actually might hire full-time workers, but there's these other websites where you can put your name up and people can hire you for one-on-one consulting. Do you enjoy those websites? Do you think that's a good way to find clients or get your foot in the door at the beginning?
Absolutely not. I think the beginning you should fail like I did.
Okay. So you should be going and finding local people, or
start local and then think global. Like start first with the people that are around you and figuring out how you can be of service to them, and then start thinking global. And only if you're in the US, because I visited other different countries, and those websites, Elance, Upwork, all those different sites in different countries do have a big value. Only if you're in the US, start local, I guess, because I don't have any experience with any other countries. But those websites do hit it big if you're in the Philippines, or if you're in Mexico, or if you're in Guatemala. Like if you're in these different countries and you can do technical work, those websites, $10 an hour, that is a lot of money.
Yeah, so you're if you're in the US and you're putting your name out on those websites, so you're competing against those guys from $10 an hour in Guatemala or the Philippines, or
and that's the thing. Like if you're in the States, life is easy. Like think about it. Like we have running water all the time. It's relatively safe if you're in a major city. Like most people are have graduated high school, so they have some sort of understanding. Like it's easy. Like it's freaking easy. Like compared to like if you go anywhere else, like you come back to the States, it's like a cakewalk.
Yeah, that's pretty much, that's true. I mean, our international listeners, if you have any comment on that, please leave it below. But and by the way, I will put all the links to what we're talking about to Rick's sites in the show notes and description below as well. So that's interesting. Yeah, that software definitely don't want there. So if you're a new freelancer, start with try local, try the people in your area. I know you've done this really well with personal branding, creating a website, getting your name out there. Has that been helpful in your career?
For my career, yes. For my career, for finding clients, no. So most of my client work that I do find is brutal hard work, like cold email, cold calls, meeting people, getting references, like the hard way. Like there's no easy way around it.
Yeah, I know John Sonmez. I know we both know him. I know you're in the Entreprogrammers podcast subgroup, which is, if people don't know, Entreprogrammers is these 4 guys that come on the air every week, and they talk about their journeys. They're all entrepreneurs that also were programmers at one point. I don't think only like Derek Bailey really codes anymore. I think John and the rest of those guys don't do as much. They're more just like coordinating their different teams of people. But yeah, so they talk about their journey every day. And then there was a subgroup created. They kind of put out a call out for people that wanted to put their life out there on a podcast, talk about their daily struggles and weekly struggles in kind of a mastermind group. So that's when you joined the Entreprogrammers subgroup. And I know they're just finally getting that on iTunes recently. I think before then, the only way you could see was just looking up your YouTube channel. But why did you decide to be so public with your business and what you're doing?
Yeah, it's one of the big main things is right now, like PR. Like I want to build more personal relationships with people. So what better way to do it than to actually get on a podcast and talk about the stuff you're doing. And if that's of interest to other people, people will find you, like people will reach out to you. So like number one reason why I decided to join the group is PR, personal relationship with people.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's definitely something I've been wanting to do too. I almost signed up for it. I was like, should I do it? But then I was like, they put out the word out in November, and I was finishing up some schooling, and I was like, I can't really start until January. And then they didn't really start it until January anyways. So, but yeah, putting yourself out there is, I mean, that's definitely a skill. I guess you could call it a skill. Yeah. Just getting your name out there, not worrying about what other people think, and just, getting a little more PR. It's an interesting thing. And I know that going back to John, he said that he has this whole personal branding mantra where he has courses on people to create blogs. He wants programmers to create blogs, to get their word out there, won't become subject matter experts, become well known in their niche that they're doing. And he thinks that by doing that, you're going to get more opportunities and be able, if you're a freelancer, get more freelancing jobs. And I don't know, I know you said that you haven't had a whole lot of success getting it, and I've been putting myself out there, and I'm definitely not as successful as John and some other people, but I haven't had much success either trying to get, like a ton of work. I'm not really putting it out there too much, but I guess it just depends on your focus. What do you think about personal branding, and what kind of John's teachings on that?
So let me see if I understand the question. Is John full of it?
Hey, I don't think he'll ever watch this, so yeah, sure, that can be the question.
No, it is an important question, and I think it should be addressed because a lot of the things that John does, a lot of people consider it spam. A lot of people call it like how can you do this? How can you even touch on such a subject? Why would he even say that? Like, a lot of he's pushing the boundaries as far as like the development career, marketing within the software development area, which is something that has personally never been done. Like, think about it, like the biggest names like Uncle Bob, like the big guys that are doing their marketing, like they all suck at it.
Yeah, like Hanselman. I mean, yeah, they have blogs, but they're definitely not, they're not doing everything they can do. Yeah, I think John is unique in that way. He's definitely pushing the boundaries quite a bit. But do you believe like in personal branding, creating a blog if you're a programmer, should you create a blog, and should you try to put your name out there? I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because it's a lot of time and a lot of effort. Like some of my blog posts that I wrote, take me 3-4 hours to write. So it's like, do you really want to spend that time, or could you be doing something else with your time? And is that going to pay off? Well, it comes back to like ultimately what your vision of yourself is, and how you see your career unfolding, and all the challenges that you anticipate in the future, and how you are actually preparing to actually face those challenges. So, is a blog like your golden key to landing, a better paying job? Is it your golden key to landing more freelance work? Is it your golden key to, unlocking the secrets to life? Absolutely not. It is just a part of a lot of things that you have to be working on.
So you're saying that could be a good idea, but it's not gonna solve all your problems. You're still gonna have to hustle. You're still gonna probably have to do some networking locally. You're gonna still have to do some cold calling, emailing, if in the case of freelancing, that is. Yeah, I could definitely see that. By putting yourself out there, you start getting more opportunities and more people start approaching you and things like that. But I think John makes a little bit rosier picture than it really is. He's gone to the point of saying that, okay, you need to, create this blog, post on it every single day, expect not to get any traffic for almost a year, and then suddenly you're going to get really popular. And he said the same thing with YouTube for a little while, and because his philosophy always is try to do more work, outwork everybody else, which that's a great philosophy. But I've seen YouTubers that have been on YouTube for 2 or 3 years, and they have, each video only has 10, 20 views, and they don't even have 300 subscribers. So I think at some point you have to, this is getting a little off topic, I'm just kind of ranting here, but I think at some point you have to definitely take a step back and see what you need to do to course correct, so to speak, that you need to, if you're trying to if your goal is to start a freelancing job and you're blogging every week and you're not seeing any results after 6 months and then a year, and your traffic in Google is 5,000 uniques a month or maybe even less, then you need to figure out what you need to do to correct that at some point.
Yeah, you're definitely right, and John is also right. But I feel like John misses one big part when he says I work everybody else. And most people, when he says that, people see, oh, you need to blog more, you need to do more videos, you need to do more podcasts, you need to do more this. That's only what you actually see externally, right? When he says like I work everybody else, you got to do it also outside of the stuff that people see. So this includes things like things that you do that people are not necessarily giving you credit for. So this could be things like, well, for him, like he does get paid for his exercises, but like working out, doing meditation, like doing all these different things outside of what people actually see. That's where you have to outwork everybody else, because that's what's going to give you the edge. It's not going to be, publishing 1,000 videos or 1,000 blogs, because if you can't mentally do that, like there's no way in hell you're actually going to do it physically. So it all starts internally.
So yeah, so do something it's just not what people see. You're definitely doing something internally. You are working other things. Yeah, I just think that's an interesting philosophy. Can I ask you, were you in the military? It seemed like
no.
Okay. I just thought maybe for a second that you may have been in the military at one point. I don't know why. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, you definitely remind me of a little bit of John Sonmez. That kind of hustling spirit there. It's when listening to you on Entreprogrammers, which is interesting. Well, I'm going to wrap up here. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we missed? And is there anything else?
Not necessarily. I don't know if you have any other questions for me, but I think for anybody listening at home is that don't feel like you're alone in anything. Like there's usually somebody you can reach out to for help. Especially like for anything, like whatever it might be. If you're just starting out your freelancing career, if you're just searching for a job, whatever it might be, don't feel like you're going at this alone. There's definitely a lot of people out there that can help you. And I feel like that was one of the big breakthroughs that I had personally, where I was like, oh, I'm not doing this alone. Like there's just people out there that are wanting me to be successful. So it's just finding those people that are actually going to allow you to be successful and be in contact with them.
Cool. So if we want to be able to contact you, where's the best place to go?
Yeah. So you can reach me at codewithintent.com. That's codewithintent.com. And then you'll be linked to everything from there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rick. And Take care.
Talk to you soon.